When we go through tough times as Christians, when we go through suffering, something bad happens to us, it's normal for us to express this struggle in this question of why. Why, God? Why are you letting me go through this? Why are you allowing this to happen? Why do you let your people suffer? Why? We have to be careful with that question. It is a question that God allows us to ask, but we must be cautious of our attitude. Are we asking that question, why, God, as if we're accusing God? It's his fault for letting these things happen? Or are we genuinely struggling with why? Why are you letting this happen? What are your purposes? And that's a hard question. And that's what the book of Job is going to really address head on. And we're in the book of Job, and it's a tough book. We have Job. He's this blameless and upright character. Lived a long time ago in the time of the patriarchs. So he lived in the time of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. And he was righteous, and he feared God, and God blessed him. God protected him. He gave Job riches, livestock, lots of children. So Job was blessed. And we find that God allows Satan to bring suffering upon Job and start to take away these things so that Job could be tested. And this happens pretty dramatically. All within one day, we have one servant coming to Job and saying, the oxen and the donkeys were all feeding, and then the Sabaeans came and struck down your servants and took them all. And then as that servant is speaking, literally as that servant is speaking, another servant comes in and says, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up your sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. And as that servant is talking, another servant comes in and says, the Chaldeans came, they formed three groups and made a raid on the camels and struck them down and struck the servants down, and I alone have escaped. And while that servant was speaking, the fourth servant came, and this was the worst news of all. This servant came and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and behold, a great wind came across the wilderness and struck the four corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they're dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. And so in one day, in one fell swoop, he loses all his riches, all his livestock, most of his servants, all his children. And you would think he would be asking the Lord at this point, why? Why is this happening? Why have you allowed this to happen? But look at this response of Job. Such a faithful response, a hard one, no doubt, but a faithful one. He arose and tore his robe and shaved his head. So he gave room for the mourning. There was a problem here. There was suffering. There was hurt. He was lamenting. And he fell on the ground and he worshipped. And he says, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Surely a great answer from a man of faith who's been blessed by the Lord. And chapter 1 ends, in all this Job did not sin. He didn't charge God with wrong. He didn't ask, why, God? Why are you letting these things happen to me? How dare you, God? And that's what we have initially. And then the book of Job is going to continue, and we're going to have that question, why, asked again and again. Why is this happening to Job? Why has God allowed this to happen? Job is going to have friends come in and sit with him and then try to answer that question, why? And they're going to come up with some pretty unwise answers. Job, why is this happening to you? You must have done something evil. There must be something you did wrong that warranted you getting this much punishment from God. There's a balance. There's a karma there, good and evil, and you've obviously done something evil that nobody knows about, but God knows, and that's why he took all these things away. And there's just all these insufficient answers for that question, why? And Job himself finds himself struggling with that, why? And then at the end of Job, God is going to show up. And God is going to answer Job. And God doesn't tell Job why. He doesn't tell him the answer. God simply shows up. He is the answer. He is there with Job. He tells Job, who are you to ask these things? Who are you to understand what my divine purposes are? But here I am, Job. and I'm here with you. And perhaps that's the point of suffering, and us asking that question, why, is not to ask the question, but to understand that in the midst of the suffering, in the midst of the lament and the struggle, God is indeed with us. He's with us. He's doing something in all this.